He heard the door before he saw it. The sound of it opening, soft at first, then aggressive. His wife's heels clicking against marble like a countdown to something terrible. Marcus was in the kitchen of the penthouse, 47 stories above a city that didn't care, making peanut butter sandwiches for his daughter. Zion sat at the counter, swinging her legs, humming a song he'd taught her. Innocent, pure, his entire world compressed into a 7-year-old girl who still believed her parents loved each other. Then the door to the bedroom burst open. Vanessa walked out, and behind her, a man, tailored suit, gold watch, the kind of expensive that speaks louder than words. But it wasn't him that made Marcus's stomach drop. It was the look on Vanessa's face, cold, decided, like she'd already written the ending and was just playing out the final scene. "We need to talk," she said, not to Marcus but through him, as if he was already a ghost. Marcus set down the knife he'd been using, the sandwich half made, the moment fractured. "Not here," he said quietly, glancing at Zion, whose humming had stopped. She was watching. She always watched. Children see everything adults think they're hiding. "Now!" Vanessa snapped. She turned to the man beside her. "Take her to the living room." That's when it happened. That's when the real breaking began. The man, Marcus never learned his name, reached for Zion's hand. And Zion, confused, looked at her father. That look, that question in her eyes. "Dad, what's happening?" Marcus wanted to move, wanted to step forward, wanted to say something that would make this stop. But he was frozen, watching his daughter being led away by a stranger while her mother looked at him like he was already gone. 30 minutes later, Marcus stood in the master bedroom, suitcase open, while Vanessa delivered her words like a prosecutor reading a verdict. "I'm done," she said, standing in the doorway, arms crossed. "Done with this life, done with pretending, done with you." "What about Zion?" His voice cracked on their daughter's name. "She stays with me. I'm her mother. I have a career. I have a future. You have—" She paused, letting the silence speak. "What exactly?" The question hung like a blade. "You have nothing," she finished, "and I'm not spending the rest of my life watching you be nothing." Then came the words that would split his world in half. "Get out, and don't come back until you have something to show for yourself." When he emerged from the bedroom 20 minutes later, suitcase in hand, Zion was waiting in the hallway. Her small face was wet with tears. She'd been listening. She always listened. "Daddy?" Her voice was a question that had no answer. "It's okay, baby girl," he whispered, kneeling down, knowing it was a lie, knowing his voice was breaking, knowing that this moment, right here, with his daughter's small arms around his neck, her body shaking with sobs she didn't understand, would be the moment everything changed. He picked her up. She weighed nothing, like she could disappear if he wasn't careful. "Daddy's not leaving you," he promised. "You hear me? Daddy's never leaving you." But as he walked toward the door, with Zion's arms around his neck and his entire life in a suitcase, he didn't know if he could keep that promise. He didn't know anything anymore except that the city below, that beautiful, indifferent city, was about to become his entire world, and it would take a miracle to save him. Marcus Webb was 42 years old, and for the last 3 years, he'd been invisible. Not the kind of invisible where people don't notice you. The kind where they see right through you. He'd met Vanessa at a hotel where he worked as a maintenance supervisor, steady pay, steady hours, steady life. She was a corporate lawyer with ambition that burned like a fever. When they married, Marcus thought he'd finally found solid ground. Someone who saw him not as a means to an end, but as a partner. He was wrong. The marriage had been slow erosion. First came the comments. "Honey, don't you think you could aim higher?" Then the invitations he wasn't invited to. Then the separate bedrooms, dressed up as needing space. He'd accepted it all quietly, the way he accepted most things, with the patience of a man who'd learned early that the world wasn't built for men who looked like him to have much. But Zion had been his light, His daughter was his reason. She had his eyes, his quiet wisdom, his ability to see beauty in small things. Marcus had raised her while Vanessa chased promotions and connections. He taught her to tie her shoes, to read, to laugh at his terrible dad jokes. He was the one who held her when she had nightmares, who braided her hair on school mornings, who whispered, "Daddy's here," when the world felt too big and too loud. 3 months ago, something shifted in Vanessa. She started wearing perfume Marcus didn't recognize, came home later, laughed on phone calls behind closed doors. He saw it coming the way you see a storm on the horizon. Inevitable. Unstoppable. But he hadn't expected it to arrive quite like this. It started with breakfast. Marcus had made waffles, Zion's favorite. Real vanilla extract, fresh berries, the works. He'd woken at 5 in the morning, not because he had to, but because that's what fathers do. They show up. They create small moments of joy. Zion sat at the kitchen counter, swinging her legs that didn't quite touch the ground, her face sticky with syrup and happiness. That's when Vanessa walked in, her expression already twisted into something angry. "We need to talk," she'd said, not looking at Zion, not acknowledging the breakfast. Just the 3 words that never meant anything good. She'd told him then. There was someone else, a venture capitalist, wealthy, connected, a man who could give her things Marcus never could, not because he didn't want to, but because he was a maintenance supervisor with a daughter and modest dreams. The other man was already talking about buying a second home in the Hamptons, already planning a wedding that would make the society pages. Marcus had felt the ground shift beneath him, but he'd stayed calm. He'd asked the only question that mattered. "What about Zion?" Vanessa's face had gone cold. "She stays with me, obviously. I'm her mother. I have a successful career. I have a future. You have... What, exactly? This life we're leaving behind?" That's when Marcus understood. In Vanessa's mind, he wasn't just a husband she was discarding. He was a liability. A man who'd made the mistake of being ordinary, of believing that showing up every day and loving his daughter was enough. It wasn't. Not in her world. By evening, she'd called her lawyer. By the next morning, she had a temporary custody order that declared Marcus could see Zion only on weekends. And when she told him to get out of the penthouse, when she said it with her new man standing behind her in a tailored suit, Marcus understood the full scope of his defeat. The penthouse was in her name. The car in the driveway was in her name. Even the furniture had been purchased during their marriage, which meant, according to the law, it belonged to her. So he left with 2 suitcases and his daughter's heart breaking into pieces small enough to fit in her tiny fists. He found a 1-bedroom apartment in a part of the city that Vanessa would never visit. The neighborhood was worn, honest. Mrs. Chen ran a bodega on the corner and always asked about Zion. Old men played dominoes on the stoop. Kids played basketball on courts with rims that didn't quite match. It was real in a way the penthouse never was, but it was also terrifying. Marcus worked longer hours. He picked up extra shifts, weekend work, anything to cover the apartment, child support, the lawyer fees that seemed to multiply like cells. On the nights Zion wasn't with him, he cleaned office buildings. Yes, the same buildings where executives walked past him without seeing him, the same way Vanessa had learned to do. One Tuesday evening, exhausted to his bones, Marcus stopped at a corner bodega for milk and bread. Mrs. Chen was restocking shelves, her movements slow with age and arthritis. She smiled at him the way she always did, with genuine warmth. "Your daughter, she okay?" she asked, as she always did. "She's good," Marcus said. "Strong. She'll be okay." "Your wife giving you trouble?" Mrs. Chen had seen things. Life had given her the kind of education money can't buy. Marcus didn't answer directly. Instead, he pointed to the lottery tickets in the display case. "Maybe God has a plan," he said, half joking, half desperate. Mrs. Chen looked at him for a long moment, then reached for a ticket. $5, she said. "You buy. Sometimes luck. She visits the honest people." Marcus almost laughed. Luck hadn't visited him in 3 years, But he took the ticket anyway. He didn't believe in it. He believed in work, in showing up, in being the father his daughter needed. But he bought the ticket because it was something to buy, and buying it was an act of hope, however small. He forgot about it almost immediately. It went into his jacket pocket and stayed there, wrinkled and bent, while he moved through his days. Work, pick up Zion on Friday, spend the weekend teaching her to ride a bicycle in the park, drop her off Sunday evening while she cried, and then return to the apartment that was too quiet without her. 3 weeks later, on a Thursday morning before his shift, Marcus was organizing his jacket when the ticket fell out. He'd forgotten he had it, but something made him check the numbers. Maybe it was habit. Maybe it was something else, some quiet voice that had learned to speak in the space where hope used to live. He checked the numbers once, then again, then a third time. His hands started shaking. The ticket was worth $502 million. For a long moment, Marcus couldn't breathe. He sat on the edge of his bed, the only furniture in his bedroom besides a dresser, and stared at the small rectangle of paper. It didn't feel real. It felt like the universe was playing a joke, showing him a door just to watch him try to walk through it. He called the lottery office. He didn't tell them who he was at first, just asked the standard questions. Could someone claim a ticket they found? Where was the purchaser recorded? When the office confirmed that the registered purchaser was the person listed on the ticket, Marcus understood the full weight of what was about to happen. He bought the ticket. He bought it legally with his own money at Mrs. Chen's bodega. He had a receipt from the store. He had the timestamp from his bank transaction. He had Mrs. Chen herself, who would remember the exact moment he walked in, broken and desperate, and bought one single chance at redemption. Marcus realized something in that moment. The ticket had never belonged to Vanessa. It couldn't. It was his. And when he claimed it, everything would change. He called his lawyer, a young man named David Park, who'd taken Marcus's case pro bono because he believed in what Marcus was trying to do, stay in his daughter's life, fight for equal custody, prove that a man who works with his hands and shows up for his child is worth something, more than something, everything. "David, I need you to listen to me very carefully," Marcus said. His voice was steady now, quiet, but certain. "I just won the lottery, and I need to do this right." David had been silent for a moment. Then, "Tell me everything." Over the next week, Marcus gathered his evidence. Mrs. Chen signed a statement. The store provided CCTV footage. The bank transaction was time-stamped. The lottery office confirmed everything. He had an airtight case. But Marcus did something that surprised even David. He didn't go public immediately. He didn't call reporters or make announcements. Instead, he did something more strategic. He went to Vanessa. He called her lawyer and requested a meeting. Neutral ground. When Vanessa arrived at the office, her new fiancé in tow, she looked at Marcus with something like contempt mixed with curiosity. "What is this about?" she asked coldly. Marcus took a breath. He could have enjoyed this moment, could have savored the surprise, the leverage, the power. But he didn't. He had learned something that wealth hadn't taught Vanessa, and probably never would. Real strength isn't about humiliation. It's about doing the right thing even when you have the power to do something cruel. "I bought a lottery ticket," Marcus said quietly, 3 weeks ago, at Mrs. Chen's bodega on 5th Street. It's worth $502 million. He watched her face carefully. First confusion, then a flicker of understanding, then something else. The dawning realization that her narrative was collapsing. "The ticket is registered in my name," Marcus continued. "I have proof of purchase. I have video evidence. I have the bank transaction. It's mine, Vanessa. Legally, unquestionably, completely mine." The man beside her stepped forward. "That's irrelevant. Any assets earned during the marriage?" "No," David interrupted calmly. "That's where you're wrong. The ticket was purchased before any dissolution proceedings began. It's not a marital asset. It's his personal property, purchased with his personal funds." Vanessa stood there, her composure cracking like old paint. For the first time, Marcus saw her clearly. Not as the woman he'd loved, but as someone small, grasping, afraid. Fear of irrelevance, fear of losing control, fear that a man she'd discarded had found a way to stand. "What do you want?" she whispered. Marcus looked her in the eye. "I want equal custody of Zion. I want her to have a home, security, and a father who's present. And I want you to understand something, Vanessa. I don't want to punish you with this money. I want to save my daughter. That's all I've ever wanted." 2 weeks later, a new custody agreement was signed. Equal 50-50 split. And because Marcus was careful, because he was thorough, because he understood that revenge is a debt that only grows with time, he didn't take everything. He claimed the full amount of the lottery, but he ensured that Zion would want for nothing: education funds, trust funds, security, and he asked for nothing from Vanessa except her agreement to let Zion spend equal time with him. When the Lottery Commission announced the winner, the story was already becoming legend. Local maintenance worker claims $502 million jackpot. The news outlets found the angle eventually: the custody battle, the ex-wife's humiliation, the beautiful redemption. But Marcus refused most interviews. He had what he needed. 3 months after the claim was approved, Marcus picked Zion up from school. She ran toward him the way she always did, but this time something was different. She wasn't anxious. She wasn't worried about which parent would pick her up next or whether there would be arguments. She was just a child, running toward her father, sure that he would catch her. And he did. "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy," she squealed, wrapping her arms around his neck. "Hey, princess," he said, breathing in the smell of her hair, the scent of the shampoo from that morning, the pure essence of his daughter. "Want to go see our new place?" He'd bought a brownstone in a quiet neighborhood. Not ostentatious, not trying to prove anything. Just a beautiful home with space for Zion's room, a backyard where she could play, a kitchen where he could make waffles on weekend mornings. He'd hired contractors, good people, people from his neighborhood, to renovate it. He'd created jobs while he was creating a home. As he drove Zion through the streets, her little face pressed to the window, Marcus thought about the nature of victory. It wasn't about humiliation. It wasn't about Vanessa losing everything while he gained it all. It was about Zion, about her seeing that her father was a man of value, a man of integrity, a man who could build something real. That night they sat in the unfurnished brownstone, eating pizza from the floor, her favorite kind of luxury, the freedom to be messy, to be a kid, to be loved without conditions. "Daddy, are you rich now?" Zion asked between bites. Marcus smiled. "I suppose I am, baby girl." "Are you happy?" He looked at his daughter, really looked at her. Her eyes held the question seriously, as if his answer mattered more than money ever could. And it did. His answer mattered everything. "I'm happy because you're here," he said. "The money is it's just a tool. It means I can make sure you're safe. It means I can be here more. It means you don't have to worry about grown-up things. But happiness? That was already here. With you. That was always the thing." Zion smiled and kissed his cheek, sticky with tomato sauce, and returned to her pizza. Over the next year, Marcus built a foundation, the Webb Foundation for Single Parents. He'd learned that his story wasn't unique, wasn't special. It was just one version of a story millions of people lived, custody battles that were stacked against fathers, dismissal from systems built on assumptions, the quiet heroism of showing up every single day. He used the money to build resources, free legal aid for custody cases, housing assistance, job training programs. He hired people from his old neighborhood, gave them paths to better lives, and in doing so, created something that the money could never buy on its own: meaning. The media called him the humble winner. They wanted him to be a symbol, a lesson about kindness and humility. But Marcus understood something they didn't. He wasn't humble because the lottery won humbled him. He was humble because that's who he'd always been. The ticket just gave him the microphone. One evening, 6 months after the lottery claim was finalized, Marcus sat in his office, a simple room in the brownstone where he worked on foundation matters. A photograph sat on his desk, Zion and him, taken the day they moved in, both laughing, both free. His phone rang. It was Mrs. Chen. "Marcus," she said, her voice warm as it always was. "I see on the television, you helping people. You remember that night you come to my store, looking so sad?" "I remember," Marcus said. "I'll never forget it, Mrs. Chen." "Good," she said. "Because you was not sad because of money. You was sad because your heart was breaking. And the lottery ticket, she did not fix your heart. You fixed it. With your love for your daughter. The money, she just give you tools to keep protecting it. You remember that, okay?" After they hung up, Marcus sat in the quiet of his office and let the truth of her words settle into him. Mrs. Chen was right. The ticket hadn't changed him. It had just changed what was possible. And what was possible when a man like Marcus, steady, honest, devoted, finally had the resources to match his character, was profound. 3 years after the lottery claim, Marcus was invited to speak at a university about single parenting, about custody rights, about the ways systems failed ordinary people. He stood in front of 200 faces, mostly other single parents, and he told them this: "I didn't win the lottery to escape my life. I won it to save my daughter from having a father who was too tired and too broken to be present. The money gave me time, and time is the only currency that actually matters. You don't need $500 million to be a good parent. You just need to show up. You just need to love. Everything else is secondary." That night, driving home through the city, Zion asleep in the passenger seat, Marcus thought about the chain of events. A desperate moment at a bodega, Mrs. Chen's kindness, $5, a ticket crumpled in a jacket pocket. The universe had shifted, but only because he'd been patient enough to wait for it. When he pulled into the driveway of the brownstone, he looked at his daughter's sleeping face, peaceful and secure. She had a father who was present. She had a home that felt safe. She had the kind of childhood that money could only enable, but love had already built. As Marcus carefully carried her upstairs to her bedroom, tucking her under the quilted blanket he'd bought her, whispering a good night she couldn't hear, he understood the full scope of what winning meant. It didn't mean Vanessa lost everything. It meant Zion had everything. Both parents, stability, and a father who'd proven, in the quiet way men like Marcus always do, that integrity and devotion are worth more than any fortune. And sometimes, when the world is kind, when one moment of hope meets one moment of patience, they become the same thing. The lottery ticket had been the door, but Marcus had always been the key.